We can start just by talking about the word sustainability. Probably a lot of y'all have heard that word before, and it's come out and has a lot of meanings. So the way that we like to talk about it at the Office of Sustainability is the balance of the 3 E's. So we talk about economy, environment, and equity, so human health and happiness. So a lot of the times, one of these is paid more attention to than the others. Which one is usually gets the most attention? Economy. So if everyone focuses on economy or profit, the other 2, environment and equity, get often left out of the picture. And so instead of being a 3-stool balance, you can't have it balanced. It's unsustainable. So when we talk about sustainability, it's often talked about on the global level, but it's really easy to understand it if you think about it localized. So when you talk about economy, you're talking about supporting your friends and neighbors who own their own businesses, going to your farmers markets and supporting your regional farmers. When we talk about environment, we're talking about protecting those natural resources that are so important to us in Leon County and Tallahassee. And then when you're talking about equity, you're talking about human health and happiness and equality. So today we're going to focus more so on your home and measures that you as individuals can take in your home. So some easy saving energy and water solutions that you can do in your home. Something I told my friend the other day, she was saying that whenever she turns on her faucet, the water just shoots out and it just sprays all over her. That can easily be solved with an aerator. Super easy to be bought at Home Depot, Lowe's, a local hardware store. And you just screw it on to your sink or faucet, and it makes sure that when you turn on your water, it's an easy flow. Another easy way that people often forget is check for leaks. Just recently, I got a notification on my utility bill that my water bill was significantly higher than my previous water bills. I hadn't increased my water usage at all. It was that my toilet had been leaking, and because it's clear water, I couldn't see that the water was moving, and it was leaking that entire time. It significantly increased my bill, and I was wasting water. So things like that you have to pay attention to, and there's really easy ways to solve those issues. It could just be as easy as changing the toilet flap inside of the toilet bowl, and not a lot of people know that you have to clean the gunk that builds up, the water scum that builds up inside of the toilet bowl. Another easy thing, people don't realize that some of your utilities, your appliances, like your TV or your microwave, have lights or clocks on them. And it's lit up, right? Lit up all the time, even when you're not using it. So when that's happening, it's sucking up energy. And it's increasing your utility bill. You're not even using those appliances. So an easy way to solve this problem is by unplugging those appliances when you're not using it, and then using power strips. So if you have a power strip, you can just easily turn it to off, and it will stop sucking any power from the wall. So they call that vampire power or phantom power because you don't even know that it's sucking out energy and using up utilities. Another thing to remember is keeping your thermostat at average. They have recommended levels that you should keep it in the summer and the winter. So in the summer, it should be at 78. I know. But the reason why you're laughing at that is because your house is not properly insulated, probably. When you're cooling your house at 78 is a very reasonable temperature, but it's probably that all your cool air is escaping out of leaks in your windows and your doors and your ducts. So that's another huge thing to be looking at. And then in the winter, they say 68. So what happened last year for me, personal story, I had an electric bill that came out to $400. I'm not lying. I cried when I saw that bill because I couldn't afford it. And I started freaking out about how could this be? I was freezing cold all winter. I set it at 65, 64. I had my dog sleeping in the bed with me under the covers because she was my only heat source. So what I did was I called my utility company. And you should know that Talquin and City of Tallahassee offers free energy audits. So I had this guy, Rodney, come out to my house walk around with me all over my house, do temperature tests on my walls, go under my building with me, and check the ductwork. And we could see that there was huge leaks coming out of the ducts. So every time I was heating my home, even at 65, 64, I mean, that's a really low temperature. And it was cold in 2018, very cold in the winter. All of that hot air was just escaping my house immediately. That's why it was so cold, and that's why my bill was at $400. So I waited too late to get an energy audit. It had a cold winter. I lost a lot of money. And once I got a report from him, I sent it to my realty company, and they came in and they sealed all my ductwork. So now I don't have to pay that much anymore in the winter. It's not even close. It will never be at $400 again because I got an energy audit and solved the problem. Another thing that Rodney did was he adjusted my water heater. So you may not realize it, but you have an ability to change your water heater temperature. So it was super high. My water was so hot whenever I turned on the water. He changed it back down. The recommended setting is 120. So it's easy. These are easy solutions. You don't need Rodney to do them. You can do them yourself. But I would recommend getting an energy audit so you do know what is available. So I talked about sealing your ducts, sealing your windows, your doors. There's really easy ways to weatherize your house. There's easy ways to put, like in the summer, you can put some kind of solution on your windows to keep the UV out, to keep your house cooler. We also talk about something I want to consider doing in my own house is getting large blackout curtains for the windows, because it's so hard to keep your house cool in the summer. If you have big windows, if you're at work during the day, just close your windows, the window curtains. You're not there anyway to enjoy the natural light, and it'll keep your house cool for you when you're out of the house. Another big thing was changing your air filter. I've been secretly changing my air filter. My roommate has never noticed that I do this every month, and I have a dog, and I have the air conditioning on, so the air filter is being used, and every time I clean it, it's full of gunk. It's full of my dog hair, and it's full of dust. So it's really important to clean it every month because it builds up, and it makes your system less efficient. And it costs $9 at Publix. But I think that you can sign up online for a system where they send you an air filter, and it's much cheaper than paying $9, $10 every single month. So those are all little solutions, and there's a ton more. I'm sure Lon is thinking of a ton more that I haven't even mentioned. And there's a lot of online resources for you guys to look and see what else you're missing or what I haven't talked about. Some bigger picture items are like whenever your appliances are not working any longer, try to replace them with Energy Star rated appliances so that you're not using that much energy with your refrigerator and your washer and your dryer. Another big change is insulating your house. So another reason my apartment is basically a mobile home unit, it's not insulated at all. So if I were to move, it would be really important for me to realize or maybe talk to my new realty company to provide insulation in the attic so it's not like all my hot or cold air is immediately escaping my house. And then another big, I had a lot of people come talk to me at my table today about how they want to install solar panels. So there's a lot of community resources for that as well if you want to get more information. We have the PACE program here, and we also have Solar United Neighbors. And I would Google that and see if you can reach out to that local organization and see if they can help you figure out ways to get solar on your house. Another thing that people don't usually talk about when it comes to greening your home is green cleaning supplies. So how many times have you guys seen eco-friendly or all-natural on products? Probably on a lot of products it says that. And a lot of the time, it's green marketing. Green washing is what we call it. Where if you don't do the research, these companies know that buyers want green products. And greenwashing is a term we use when companies trick people into thinking their products are more eco-friendly, where they may not be at all. They just have a green leaf on the label, on the bottle, and we fall for that. And I have too. So it's really important to do your research on these companies and what materials are being used. Because you may just be spending $5 extra on something that's not any different from the generic brand. So look for details. Don't automatically trust labels that say eco-friendly or all natural. Look for third-party certification. Like they have Green Seal certified and Eco Logo. There's a lot of, once again, there's a lot of resources online where you can type in the product name into a database and they'll tell you what is in that product. Avoid excessive chemicals and fertilizers, and then the best solution is to make your own. Using lemon water and vinegar and baking soda, those are the best products to use for your household, for your children, for your pets. And there, I mean, yeah, once again, so many resources I've read online that have really good solutions to use. So also waste reduction and disposal. I talk to a lot of people out on my table outside about how to dispose of recycling. I have a recycling magnet out there, so after this presentation, if you want a recycling magnet or you have questions about what can and cannot be recycled in Leon County, the most important thing to note is that recycling is very localized. It is a business. So when you recycle things, it needs to be materials that our local recycling facility, Marpan, is selling to domestic buyers. So just because it says recyclable does not mean it's recyclable here. So it's important to know your rules because it is really valuable. The most valuable products to recycle is paper, cardboard, and any kind of like aluminum, steel, metal, your metal cans, things like that. That's really important to recycle because those materials can be reused many, many times before it gets taken to the landfill. You should definitely be recycling plastic and cleaning out your plastic yogurt cups and your milk jugs and things, but I think it's more important to just reduce your plastic consumption in general because it's becoming harder and harder to find those markets to buy that material. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that China has stopped accepting a lot of materials. Like on the West Coast, there was a lot of cities sending all of their materials to China. And China's like, oh, no, we have way too much of a trash problem here in our own country. We cannot keep taking your trash. So all these green cities on the West, they're bailing up all of their materials, and then they're just sitting there at the facilities, or they're taken to the landfill. So here, and we're very lucky because here in Leon County, Marpan sells to domestic buyers. China banning the sending over of materials doesn't affect us yet. But it's really important to realize what's changing and what's going to happen. So it's important to use materials that are better in terms of not sending to the landfill. So what are the best materials? Reusable dishware, probably what most of you guys use at home, something that you can wash and keep using. And then the second best material is like cardboard, paper items, things that can be recycled, things that are made with recycled content. Those are the second best material. And then the worst material, probably the material you want to avoid, is single-use plastic items. So water bottles. I mean, I know that some of you guys will be like, no, I use my water bottle like 10 times before I throw it out. But still, just get a reusable water bottle. And if you need a reusable water bottle, call my office and I'll give you one for free. So we want to make this available to you guys. Plastic utensils, straws, that's why there's such a movement to stop using those things in the first place because they're not recyclable. Even though they're made out of plastic, it's a really low quality plastic. Really hard to melt it down and to turn it into something else. And styrofoam. Styrofoam is one of the hardest materials to recycle. Our local Publix accepts styrofoam. They use that later on to make other styrofoam products. But here in Leon County, we don't accept styrofoam in your recycling bin. It's very hard to find buyers for that material. And it has to be very clean and very dry. The worst things to put in your bin are like plastic bags and things that can tangle up the machinery because those things break apart and they get stuck in the machinery and those guys that work there have to go in and hand pick them out of the machines. So it's best to stay away from those kind of items, and then if you can't, you could take your plastic bags if they're clean and dry back to Publix. Just don't put them in your bin. Another thing I'm talking about out at my table is the Household Hazardous Waste Center. Has anyone taken things there? Out on Appalachia, I see a few hands raised. So if you're ever cleaning out your garage or your shed and you have tons of old cleaning products and paint and oil and batteries, old electronics, phones, keyboards, anything, you can bring it out to the hazardous waste facility. It's located at 7550 Appalachia Parkway. It's at the old dump. It's free to drop anything off. So these things should not be going in your trash bin, because then they end up in the landfill, and those things can leak into the soil and into our water. So it's best to properly dispose of it, and that's what they do at the Household Hazardous Waste Center. Out there, they have a lot of free resources, like for items that aren't completely used up and that are legal to use. They have a swap shop where you can go in and pick up to 5 items for free. And they also have free paint that they give away 5-gallon buckets of paint every Thursday morning. If you get there early, you get to pick the best colors. And they have free mulch, so whenever there's a hurricane and you see your neighbors getting rid of yard waste, that's the yard waste that gets mulched up. So we don't recommend using that in your food gardens because you don't know what weeds, seeds, if it's been treated, but we recommend people using it for walkways and bigger landscaping projects. I use it for composting, so it's a really good carbon source when I compost. And they have coarse and fine mulch. So what sustainable practices can you do in your yard or your garden? Once again, check for leaks. Maybe I should have noticed the toilet leak faster, but if I didn't even notice the toilet leak, if there's a leak in your yard or garden, you should be checking for those regularly, because you're probably not going to notice them right away. And thankfully, I know that in the city, I got a notification too when my hose was running all the time, and I got to go check outside and turn it off. But I had to pay an extra like $10 that month because it had been running without me noticing. And also plant native plants in your garden. There's a lot of cool programs in Florida, like the Florida Friendly Landscaping Certification. It not only promotes local biodiversity and feeds local flora or fauna, it also can, native plants require the least amount of attention and water. So you're already saving money if you're planting these type of things in your yard. They require much less maintenance and watering, and natives are also way more likely to be resistant against disease. And then I was telling you guys about where you can get free mulch, and we recommend putting mulch around the trees and in beds, flowering beds, not food garden beds. And then use your sprinkler efficiently. How many times have you been walking around your neighborhood and you notice that someone's sprinkler is just sprinkling the road? I've walked past that so many times. So try to pay attention to that when you're setting up your sprinkler. And it's best to water in the morning. If you're watering in the middle of the day or at night, it's not as efficient. It can promote like fungus growth, and if you're watering late at night, and if you water in the middle of the day, it's too hot. You might burn your grass to begin with. So the best time to water is in the morning. So another thing I've been talking about outside is composting. And if you guys came to my table, hopefully you entered my raffle prize for a compost bin. I'll give that out at the very end. So composting, hopefully most of y'all have heard about that. So it's about using a better way of getting rid of your food scraps. So when you're first starting out, you probably don't want to compost things like dairy and meat and bread, because those are harder to decompose and they might attract bugs and animals. But food scraps like vegetable scraps, fruit scraps, egg shells, coffee grounds, napkins, those are really awesome things to compost, and just putting them with mulch or dead leaves or dead grass and circulating the soil. And that is, once it decomposes, it turns into this really amazing soil that's super nutritious for your vegetable garden. And for me, I like composting. We have a compost bin at work, and if I leave all my food scraps in my trash bin, my dog will get into it. So if I put it on the counter and collect it, she's not going to get to it. So I have to clean up trash off my floor less with that. If you want to know more about composting, we're in a building that teaches people about composting regularly. They have awesome composting and gardening workshops. They have workshops on permaculture and vermicomposting when you use worms to compost. So if you don't have a big yard, you can have like a little worm bin that doesn't stink at all, and you just throw in the food for the worms, and you get really awesome soil from that too. So they have a compost workshop just next month. I think it's May 22nd, and they actually, anyone who signs up for that workshop gets a free compost bin. I think the first 25 people do. They have so many. So follow them on Facebook and get more accustomed. Now you guys know where this building is. It's not too far away. This building is really cool too. If you walk around, you'll see they have a rain. They have a demonstration, like they recycle these huge fuel tanks. And that's what collects all the water from the roof, and that's what they water their garden with. And they have a big demonstration garden that you guys should walk around before y'all leave. And they have a geothermal system out in that parking lot out back. It's awesome. That's what heats and cools this building. So this building was built in like the 1960s, and it's been retrofitted to be a net zero energy building. So it actually produces more energy than it uses, which is pretty awesome. It feeds back into the grid. And also, you notice the solar panels. That's providing not just the solar energy, but shading for all the parking. That's where all the employees park during the day, so they don't have to park their car in the hot sun. If you're thinking about planting more native plants in your garden, there's an open house and plant sale here in this building. All of the money goes to the Master Gardener program. And that is on Saturday, May 11th. I'll be there too. I'll be there. Yeah. So yeah, if you there's so many resources here in the county, and it just takes a little bit of research and talking to the right people to figure out what you can use. If you have any questions, feel free to call our office. I have a few business cards with me. And just call our office we're at the ORS building on South Monroe, and we can easily answer any of your questions. And same with this building too. If you have any gardening questions, if all your citrus plants are dying from disease or whatever, you can call the horticulture expert here, and they can help you figure that out. That is what they're here for. So I hope you learned a lot about how to green your home, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Yay, thank you.